Welcome to Review Every Ship by CitizenCon 2024. The point is to give an update on every ship since some haven't had a video made about them in years, and others, the information is simply too spread out to be helpful in making decisions. When we do a concept ship that isn't in game, we'll theory craft about what we think the final product using an educated guess and information available at the time of the review will be. We'll go in depth, but we won't repeat everything on the RSI website. We will link to sources and fix any errors either in the description or in the comments, and remember, digital ships aren't imaginary. Digital ships are imagine necessary. Before we start, I am giving away an account with a Stella Fortuna themed ship. I'll announce which ship on the day of Stella Fortuna. I am also giving away a Stella Fortuna skin and an armor or weapon set for a total of not one, not two, but 3 prizes. To enter the contest, make sure you're subscribed to Billionaire Ninjas, leave a comment on at least one video, and like or dislike a video. When you win, I will verify you through social media, so go and follow the Billionaire Ninjas page at Ninjas Leap on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. The 3 winners for each contest will be announced at the end of the month and will have 2 weeks to claim their prize. The first person to verify gets to choose the best prize, so although you have 2 weeks, you'll want to reach out fast, so make sure you're watching every video as soon as possible to be the first to grab the grand prize. Now back to the video. We are still at the Crusader manufacturer, and the next ship is the Crusader Hercules Starlifter, and it has 3 variants. We have the Hercules C2, $400 standalone, 370 war bond, was $300 at concept, cost about $4.9 million in game. The M2, 520 standalone, 480 war bond, was $400 at concept, cost about $5.2 million in game. The A2, $750 standalone, 675 war bond, and was $600 at concept, cost about $5.5 million in game. The Hercules series is time limited for purchase. I haven't been able to find these for rent, so I'm assuming these ships are not available for rent in game as of 3.2.2.1. For the sake of clarity, I will call each of these ships by their unique name, so I'll list them as C2, M2, and A2. Utilizing the patented Hercules military-grade space frame and expanded cargo capacity while sacrificing barely any firepower, the C2 has taken the private sector by storm. It has become the industry standard for racing teams, ship dealers and manufacturers, construction orgs, mining corporations, and even large-scale touring entertainment outfits. The M2 Hercules is the UAE's premier tactical starlifter. The ship's potent combination of capacity, maneuverability, and durability make it the obvious choice in large-scale transport, and a robust weapons package assures your cargo and crew gets to where you're going in one piece. The A2 gunship has been used to devastating effect in airborne assaults, search and rescue operations, and landing initiatives. With more than double the firepower of the M2 and a custom bomb bay capable of delivering a staggering payload, the A2 caters to anyone hauling massive amounts of cargo through potentially unfriendly skies. The internal cargo king, the ground combat king, and the best of both worlds.
How do you decide between crunchy and soft tacos?
¿Por qué no los dos?
For measurements, they are all the same. Length 94 meters, beam 70 meters, height 23 meters. For crew, the Hercules series all have the same minimum crew, which is 1, but the maximum crew on the C2 is 2. For the M2, it's 3 crew max, and for the A2, it is 8 crew max. The C2 carries 696 SCU, the M2 carries 522 SCU, and the A2 carries 216 SCU.
Oh, that's a lot of potatoes.
The Hercules series all have the same top SCM speed of 135 and max speed of 963, which is about average overall as of patch 3.22.1, and above average for the large class of ships. For maneuverability, the Hercules series is about average overall as of 3.22, and as far as the large class of ships, it's slightly above average. For weapons, all of the Hercules have 2 size 5 weapon hardpoints and 2 size 5 remote turret mounts with dual size 4 laser cannons. The M2 adds another size 5 remote turret mount with dual size 4 lasers. The A2 adds 2 size 5 remote turret mounts with size 5 laser cannons, 2 size 6 remote turret mounts with dual size 5 laser cannons, and 4 size 10 bombs or 60 size 6 bombs.
You can't say bomb on an airplane.
Bomb, 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 bomb. You gonna arrest me?
For ship parts, the Hercules all have similar parts. The C2 has 1 medium radar, 1 medium computer, 1 large power plant, 2 medium coolers, 2 large shield generators, 2 medium fuel intakes, 2 medium fuel tanks, a large quantum drive, a large jump module, and 2 medium quantum fuel tanks. The M2 upgrades the medium power plants to a large and has 2 large coolers instead of 2 medium coolers. The A2 adds the same components as the M2, but also adds a medium computer and adds a large power plant for a total of 2 each. Here's the issue with the ship matrix. The M2 is supposed to have 1 large shield, but in game it has 2 large shields, which makes sense because I don't see why it would have less shielding than the C2. Also, I feel like some of these parts are not necessarily in the game as they're supposed to be yet, so I would take this with a grain of salt. The hull HP for the entire series is 81,400, which is way above average overall, being in the top 15 of all ships in the game and about average for the large class of ships. The shield on the C2 are the Stronghold industrial grade C shields, which are quadrant type shields. The shield pool is about 200,000 and it regains about 880 HP per second. The shields on the M2 and A2 are the same, and they are the full block military grade B shields, which are quadrant type shields. The shield pool is about 220,000. It regens at about 968 HP per second. For quantum capability, the C2 comes with the thermal core industrial grade C quantum drive. It travels 20 million miles in about 6 minutes and has a range of 2,277. That means it can travel just about anywhere in the verse multiple times and make multiple trips before refueling. It's one of the furthest traveling ships in the game. For quantum capability, the M2 and A2 come with the Ponte's military grade C quantum drive. It travels 20 million miles in about 2.5 minutes and has a range of 719. That means it can travel most places in the verse without needing to stop for fuel along the way, but it may need to refuel a small amount once it gets to its destination to make the return trip, but sometimes it won't have to do that. And for short trips or anything that's in a system, it most likely won't need to refuel at all. Some special features for these ships are, well, let's start with amenities they all have. Living quarters with beds, bathrooms, sinks, a kitchen, weapon and armor storage, and tons of personal storage for items. All the ships have escape pods and all the ships have easily accessible components. The C2 adds a few more creature comforts for the crew with the full recreation area. The C2 also has the 696 SCU, which is the second highest cargo capacity in the game and highest internal cargo capacity in the game as of 3.22.1, meaning it can fit multiples of any vehicle in the game in its cargo bay. The M2 replaces the recreation area with 12 drop seats and an armory, but drops its cargo capacity to 522 and loses 43% of its internal storage. The A2 keeps the armory, but has a remote turret room instead of the drop seats and loses half of its internal storage of the M2 for a whopping 187% less internal storage than the C2. The M2 adds another bed for a crew member with 1 more bed than the C2 for a total of 3. The A2 adds 6 more beds than the C2 for a total of 8. The M2 and A2 are also supposed to be more heavily armored than the C2, so when armor comes online, the defensive capabilities of those ships will further outshine the C2. Now it's time to rate this ship. A rating I rate from 1 to 10. My 1 is only buy if you have a unique reason that is specific to you or because you like the looks of this ship. My 10 is if you have the money, this ship is almost guaranteed to be useful to you in the game. A 1 doesn't mean the ship is useless or ugly, and a 10 doesn't mean the ship is perfect. Just remember, this is just our rating. Please give us yours in the comments down below. And then when you're done, you can finally rest and watch the sun rise on a grateful universe. My rating for this ship is of course going to be handed out based on which variant we're looking at. I must start this one by saying I am trying very hard on this one not to be biased because Crusader is one of my favorite ship manufacturers. And I think I've achieved that. The C2 is an 8, the M2 is a 9, the A2 is a 8. Let's start with what I like about all these ships. I absolutely love how these ships look. These are some of the more well-designed ships in all of Star Citizen. What I like about the C2 is that it can carry a massive amount of SCU, that it carries its cargo internally, that it can hold its own in a fight, and that it has a very low crew requirement. The entry-level price for the C2 was also a great value if you got it when it first hit concept. This can also transport a lot of the small ships, and with 2 entrances, it's our first in-game version of a pocket carrier. What I like about M2 is that it does most of what the C2 does, but adds the ability to act as a dropship, adds armor for more defense, and adds an extra turret for better offense. Although it carries 174 less SCU, I think it more than makes up for that by becoming a true multi-role ship. You can do most cargo missions, you can do most combat missions, you can transport vehicles, you can transport small ships, and do all of this with the crew requirement of just 3. What I like about the A2 is that if something is below you on the surface, it's pretty much dead. If you're in space and you have this thing fully crewed with a good pilot, pretty much anything large and below is dead. And unlike the few ships that might outclass it in combat, it still carries a whopping 216 SCU, and it can still fit a few vehicles or a few small ships inside its cargo bay. So the issues with all of these ships are doors. It takes way too long to exit the ship, and this is a problem with all Crusader ships. They need extra entry points. And not to mention, the hull HP, even as much as it is still far too low for the M2 and A2. The M2 should be about 100,000 and the A2 should be at least 160,000. These ships also fly okay in atmosphere, but they should actually fly very well in Atmo because they are mostly meant to operate in Atmo. Also, they barely have any top coverage for weapons. Everything seems to be ground facing, which makes sense because they are supposed to be ground facing ships, but it's still a knock on the ship. The C2's specific issues are it doesn't have a tractor beam. It's not meant to be cargo, it's meant to be a vehicle dropship. I get that. That doesn't mean it can't have at least a mount for a tractor beam. The M2's issues are it needs another turret or point defense on the top. The A2's issues are the same as the M2. I just don't understand why it loses so much cargo capacity in comparison to the M2 and C2. It should be closer to 300. I think they overdid it when they tried to balance the A2, but I get it. The A2 is so much going on for it that sometimes it's easy to see it as being overpowered. So having that much cargo might make the problem worse. That being said, $750 is a lot to spend on a digital spaceship. I don't care who you are. So how would I fix these ships? I would give the C2 a tractor beam mount, make it fly better in Atmo, and make it a bit faster. For the M2, I would add an automated turret on the top and give it a better armor than the C2. For the A2, I would up it to 300 SCU from 216 and give it better armor than the M2. So who are these ships for? The C2 is for the person who wants to haul their cargo securely and needs to maximize their haul while being more secure than something like the Hull series or Caterpillar, and also have a few vehicles and small ships to move. The M2 is for the cargo hauler who prefers security to maximize cargo, or the person who needs a true multi-role ship. The A2 is for people who need to destroy things a lot, but want something that can do a bit more than just destroy things. I imagine using the C2 for when I'm setting up an outpost, piling in a ballista and Centurion to set up security before I come back with a massive haul of construction materials for my Pioneer. Then I have cover while I build the outpost. I imagine using the M2 as my multi-crew bounty hunter ship, doing DHRTs and taking every piece of loot that isn't nailed down. I also can run a bunker mission and be part of a run on Jumptown. 522 SCU of cargo is also enough to just be a straightforward cargo hauler when I feel like it, with much less need for hired guns. The A2 I need as the direct opposite to my Polaris. I see the Polaris as being able to destroy just about anything flying in space. I see the A2 as being able to destroy just about anything that is planetside, including on moons. But once I destroy what I came to destroy, the question is, then what? Well, I have 216 SCU of cargo capacity to loot enough to make some decent income on top of all that destruction. Outside of that, the A2 is an absolutely integral part of any military fleet that intends on running into capital ships or fighting in atmosphere, so it can drop those Moabs on the capital ships or drop them on pretty much anything that's on the ground. I know you're here for our rating, but if you really want a ship, go buy it. We won't stop you. Or even better, all ships can be earned in game once the game releases, and some you can purchase in game right now. These are just our ratings, but when you spend, it's your money. My opinion, these are some of the most useful ships in Star Citizen. I don't know anyone that couldn't find a use for at least one of these variants. If I'm a racer, I use the C2 or M2 to haul my bikes or small ships, or even use it to haul like something crazy to race with, like a tank. If I do mining, I use the A2 to protect, but also as a place to hold my empty bags of ore while I swap them out with ones that I actually use. If I do salvage, I can imagine taking any of these along, either to store my RMC, to protect me while I salvage, or both. These are some of the ships that really show the incredible gameplay that Star Citizen has to offer. I own one already, and I'll own another at some point. These are all just too good to pass up. If you can only afford one, I would get the M2. But any more than that, I would go C2 and A2 for the best combination. That is it for this one. Thanks for spending your time with us. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.